Okay. All right, everyone. We're getting people into the room. Tell us where you're from. All right, we got a quiet audience here. All right, here we are for another installment of Liquitex. All right, welcome everyone. Colorado, New York, Tulsa, California. Keep telling us where you're from. Thank you for joining us today. We're here for, as I said, another installment of the fourth class of our Liquitex series. Today we will be covering Liquitex mediums. With us today to get you through this great class, I will be moderating, and my name is Jeannie Breedy. I'm a marketing director, and I work with the Liquitex team. And with us, who you see mostly in front of the camera, is Marla, who will be joining us also to moderate and answer any questions. And in front of the camera today, we have Jimmy with Liquitex 102. And Jimmy, why don't you take it away? Enjoy, everyone, and let's have some great interaction. And we're here to have a great class.
Yeah. Hey, great. Thanks, Jeannie. Hey, everybody. My name is Jimmy Leslie. I'm the resident artist for Liquitex. I've got my hat and my super, let's see, can you see that? I told another demo recently, it looks like I lost a paintball battle with this thing. It is covered. So I'm here today as the resident artist. I'm also the director of our Fine Art Collective education program. And we're going to be talking about pouring medium today, pouring medium. And pouring medium's been wildly popular for a number of years, but Liquitex is now introducing two new varieties, and that's a matte and the iridescent pouring medium. So these really different cool sheens that we're going to show you. So let's do this. Let's flip right around to my overhead camera. And a few things to start off here. At Liquitex Official, you can find Liquitex on Instagram. You can also find us at, this is TFACNA, stands for the Fine Art Collective North America. That's our education program. That's good to know because we're doing a giveaway right now. So I'm going to show you here. Oh, look, I even got a note. I'm going to remind myself there, Marla, giveaway. We've got we've got a Liquitex soft body muted collection set. There's 6 beautiful colors. We're actually going to use some of them today. And if you go over to at TFACNA on Instagram and follow us there, we're going to announce a winner on Friday. So good luck to everybody at that. And then finally, at Jimmy Leslie Art, if you want to say hi to me over there and see what I'm up to as a professional artist all the time. I post a lot of daily things there. So 3 great ways, and I'll try to remember. Maybe Marla, you could put those in the chat actually for
will do. Yep.
Yeah, for everyone. That way they'll have that. Okay, so a quick recap here. Now, actually give us a shout too, and let us know if you were with us for the previous classes. I did a class last Tuesday on Liquitex Medium, so give us a shout if you were there for that. And also, the 2 previous weeks, Marla was with us and talked about mediums. We're looking at pouring medium today, but just a recap. Mediums in general will basically customize your paint. It will, I said it last week, I like to think about it, and you actually let me go back as I explain this here to our, yeah, this way. I like to think of mediums like this. So I want you to take this concept away with you that I shared last week. Think of your paint like food. So it's a piece of chicken, it's broccoli, whatever it is. And your mediums are like your spices. So they can make your food sweet, sour, tangy, spicy, you know, any number of things that fit your taste. And what a medium will do is change your paint and customize it to your own aesthetic taste, right? Instead of your, I don't know what the word, your culinary taste, your aesthetic taste. So that's very important to know. And when we look at our pouring mediums, they're going to change sheen and viscosity a little bit. So I'm going to show you, let's look at this. This is our new packaging. So this is Liquitex pouring medium, the same tried and true pouring medium that's been a big craze and everybody has really loved for quite a long time right now. And if we look on here, we can see it increases flow. It says it reduces crazing. That might not be a term you're familiar with. So Crazing simply means not quite cracking, but it's almost like little depressions that can wind up in a paint film. You would probably see this if you've ever spilled house paint somewhere. And then you come back and it's got these little sort of rivulets in it. So pouring medium will reduce that. And it's also going to give it a high gloss finish. Marla, I think I saw a question came in you were going to ask.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I had a question about where they can get the new iridescent pouring medium. I said,
Yeah, sure. So they're making their way to Michael's stores now. You're going to want to check definitely online at michaels.com. Definitely check there and call your local stores. Personally, I don't know which ones have it yet or if all do. The actually interesting thing for you guys, this is a super sneak peek because this is our new packaging for pouring medium. I actually don't have the packaging here today for matte and iridescent. It would look just like this and it would say it, but I've got giant buckets here in my studio that are straight from the lab. So that's how new this product is. You guys are really amongst the first people to see it. So let's look at things here. A few things on their own. This is what pouring medium looks like on its own. It dries very glossy. Here's its film. Now, what we're going to do today, most often you all know of pouring medium, and I have little containers that I'm going to pour out of, and you know that you'll pour your paint onto a canvas, some sort of surface, mainly a canvas usually, and what happens is you'll tilt and twist that, and it'll move all over the surface until you have it coated. But the thing I'm going to talk about today is using acrylic skins. So I'm going to talk about putting pouring medium on a non-stick surface. This right here is palette paper. You can see the sheen to it. It's very slick. It's not porous at all. So when we pour onto a surface like that, we can then peel up. And what that means is that we can decide where we want to place our pour. So you can see here with regular pouring medium, I use some, I think this was quinacridone crimson. I used just a little so you can see how beautifully transparent and glossy that is. And I used a little carbon black. So if I wanted to put this on a surface, I can decide where I want my pour to go because I've done the pour on a non-stick surface and I've peeled it up. Let me know if that makes sense. I think that should make sense. So here we're looking at pouring medium alone and then pouring medium. This is with some ultramarine blue, and look at, there's a beautiful transparency to that. Gorgeous, but look at that sheen again. That's what you're going to get with pouring medium. Now, one thing that I'm going to mention here, it's a question that might come up. People often ask about drying time. If you're doing a pour, wait overnight. Because here's my experience, right? This beautiful sheen you see here is what it looks like when it's wet, and obviously it's dry right now. So I think the thing that gets us, right, when we have something like this, don't we just want to touch? We're like little kids, right? I think we all like, ooh, is it wet? And then we go do it and we go, oh man, darn it, it was wet, and then we mess it up. So definitely let your pouring, any of your pouring, whether it's the regular matte or iridescent, dry overnight. And also the other thing, make sure you have a level work surface. Take a little level that you might have in a toolkit or something like that. Then here is our newest. This is our matte pouring medium. So here, comparison, right? Big difference from clear to that matte sheen that we get right here. So some people, I'm going to be doing some combining of these, and I'll show you that in just a bit. And here's our pouring medium with a ultramarine blue as well. And you can see that matte finish. Now I have very strong lights here, so you're going to still get something reflecting, but it's a very matte. See, Ellie, you can see that there, very matte. And then here's the ooh and ah. Ready? Are you ready? Marla, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Are you ready, Marla? Tell me.
Totally.
Here's our iridescent pouring medium. Look at, I like this on its own. I mean, it's beautiful with, yeah, there we go. Pam D to everyone says, ooh. Pam, you should go off mute to go, ooh. I'd like to hear that if you feel so inclined. But there's our iridescent on its own. Now, one thing I can say about this, Marla, I don't know if I've shared this with you yet, but iridescent pouring medium basically has the reflectivity, so the reflective nature of aluminum. So to give you an idea. Yeah, right. That's kind of, yeah. And Sue says like kind of a pearlescent finish. Yeah. And then here I have it with some I believe, yeah, I did some quinacridone. Look at that, quinacridone magenta. So now we're getting that gloss. Isn't it gorgeous? Yeah, Marinetta says it's gorgeous. It is. It's something that just really, it deserves a drum roll, I think. So let's set these aside. Okay, and I'm going to show you a few completed ones. I'm going to put that down there and out of the way. So one of the things I just showed you a moment ago is this, what we call an acrylic skin. So again, acrylics are, I like to say they're natural adhesives. Acrylics love to stick to porous surfaces like watercolor paper, wood, canvas, and they don't love slick surfaces. So you can peel them up if you do that. Now, one of the things that's kind of neat is look at how, again, how transparent that is. You can see a big difference when I put my hand back there. This is something where you could have, you could stick this to a window. This would actually stick quite nicely right to a window with nothing on it, and you'd get a very stained glass effect. So you could actually do some kind of interesting crafts where you actually do that. And then later on, you could use a, what we would call it, a razor blade to scrape that off the window. But there's a beautiful transparency. And that really has a lot to do with the ratio of color you use. So today I'm going to use about a 1. Oh yeah, and Gail says to everyone, great to use in jewelry pieces. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, Gail. That's an interesting concept. It could, this is so flexible. Gail, I would think, what I would think would be kind of cool, Gail. So here's, hold that jewelry thought. I'm glad you said that, Gail. Thank you for raising that, not question, but that comment. Because what I have here is I've got watercolor paper. And what I've done is I've used Liquitex ink and I've splattered that watercolor paper. I've blown on it. So originally, different colors, but originally it looked like this, right? And then I took my acrylic pour and I could put it on top of there and I could arrange how I want my pour. And then I could actually add more to it. So I'll show you an example where I did that. I just did a demo about this morning. So here's my watercolor paper. Here's my pour, in which in some places I've used iridescent. You can see some of the iridescence here, right? In some places you can see, let's see, more matte right there, matte and very transparent in that green. And we've got our, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but
No,
there's
you're good.
Good question that came through. Roxanne mentioned iridescent medium looks opaque, matte has cloudy-like look. So do the different textures of the pouring mediums alter the original colors?
Yeah, smart. Roxanne, that was? Yeah, that's a smart,
yes, Roxanne,
yeah, that's a smart question. Yeah. So it will. So here's the thing, Roxanne, let's do this. I have some, we're going to start pouring in a minute, and I've got some things pre-mixed. What I'm going to do here is, let me mix for you. I'm going to put some regular pouring medium. I've got my iridescent and matte already mixed. I'm going to put some regular pouring medium in this. I'm doing about 3 squeezes, right? So let's see if I can turn that on its side. I don't know. I've got that like a quarter of the way full. Depends on how much you're doing, right? How much pouring you're going to do. I'm not going to do a huge amount in this small space. So I put about a third in there. And what I can do, I think I'm going to use this. This is muted pink. It's a really, really pretty color. And I see Karen, as I'm showing this, Karen Laird says, can I catch this video at a later date? Yeah, these live on the Michaels website. So don't worry about that. You can always go back and look. Now, I could in here, let's see if I get that in the camera. Yeah, I could put 1 drop and just mix that up. Now, if I do that, obviously my deep, deep muted pink is going to be very, 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 very light, right? But there's no chemical reaction or issue with just putting 1 drop of the Liquitex acrylic ink in our acrylic pouring medium. I'm going to put more of that because I want the color to be stronger, but there's no ratio you have to do. The reason I roughly say a 1:10 ratio of ink to color is because I want you to know value-wise, right? For your pocketbook here, for your wallet. The most expensive part of your paint, and I'm going to mix this up with just the end of a clean paintbrush. The most expensive part of your paint is the pigment, is the color that's in there, right? So when you put, if I put, I don't know, 2 droppers full of the Liquitex ink in here, and that gets me the color that I want, then there's no reason to put more color in there because you're using more paint. Now that makes that, sort of this, I would say kind of middle value. I want to get it a little bit darker, so I'm going to go maybe 2 more dropper folds there. And this is my long way of answering Roxanne's question here, is that, yeah, it's gonna change it to a degree depending on how much color that you put in there. But also, let's just see, look at that's a little bit darker now still. A little bit darker still. Now, when you do this, when you mix, don't mix vigorously. Don't get crazy like that because you'll get bubbles in there. So we want to avoid those. So now I'm mixing Liquitex ink here. And to continue with Roxanne's question, let me show you a few things here. I'm going to put this back on. And I want to point out 3 varieties of paint that I have here. I have Liquitex acrylic gouache. Let's get that in focus for you. There we go. Liquitex acrylic gouache. We know this because it says acrylic gouache and it has this dark cap on it. Acrylic gouache dries very, very matte. So what I've done is I've mixed it with our matte pouring medium, right? Matte to matte. Now, if I mixed another variety of paint, like soft body, which dries to a satin finish, the matte would end up making that matte. So I don't have to use acrylic gouache here, but it just kind of makes sense to use a matte color if you already have it with the matte pouring medium right there. Now, if I was to use, let's say, a different color, this is a cadmium-free yellow light acrylic gouache, which dries matte, with the iridescent medium, the iridescent pouring medium, that's going to change this and it's going to make it iridescent. But part of your opacity is the opacity that's on the jar itself. That little square that's half black, half white, that lets us know that it's semi-opaque, right? It's not quite transparent. It's not opaque. It's in the middle right there. And when you add a medium to that, you're going to make it more transparent. So part of it is what the color begins with, starts with. This medium magenta I just showed you, that black square tells us that it's very, very opaque. If it was just an outline of a square, just an outline, that would tell us it's transparent. So part of it is the color you're starting with. Part of it is how much you're adding to it. But let's get to it. Let's pour. Let's pour. So that's what we're here for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take another clean surface here. I'm going to take our, again, I've just got a nonstick palette paper right here. And what we'll do is I'm going to take a little bit of our matte pouring medium. I'm going to take it in the medium magenta. And I'm going to dump some right sort of in the middle here. Now, I want to show you something. The matte pouring medium, of course, it's going to look glossy right now because it's wet. But the matte pouring medium and the iridescent pouring medium are thicker viscosity, right? Viscosity is just another word for thickness, thicker than your regular pouring medium. So watch this. I'm going to take some regular pouring medium. This is a muted turquoise, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of our matte. I want you to watch something here. Watch what happens when we do that. Just going to put a little bit more. Now, what happens with the regular pouring medium, it's going to start sinking down into that matte area. And as we watch it, you can start to see it happening already. See, you're starting to get some fuzzy edges that are starting to occur there. And I'll show you an interesting thing that happens with a dried piece. So when we look at our dried version of this, and I'm going to peel up a piece of paper over here. Let's see, where do I have that? Here's a dried piece. And once we let this dry, and again, I want that to be very flat. Here's a piece that has dried. I'm going to peel it right off. Really easy to peel off. And again, now if you did this pour on a canvas or a piece of watercolor paper, it's going to stick to it. It's going to stick to it. But on that non-stick paper, here we can see a situation where I've got my matte pouring medium in the middle. I've got my regular pouring medium that I didn't add any color to. And then I've got my iridescent pouring medium, which is very, very pearl-like. So you can see I can start to mix these things and actually use them together, or I can continue here. Let's bring this back now that it's had time to settle a little bit. See there, we're starting to get that blue-gray mixing, and look at that beautiful
Nice.
little halo that we get. Yeah, Marla, go ahead.
No, that's nice. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
isn't it pretty? Oh, you just commented. Yeah. Yeah. So keep in mind, there's a number of things that we can start to do here. You know, we can do this. Let's go with some, let's get that iridescent out now. Same color, but with iridescent medium. And we can see the difference here. And I'm just going to come around the outside of it now. So it's sort of concentric circles. So one of the things that you can do with pouring, as opposed to the normal way that people pour, which is mixing it all together, and especially if you use bottles like this, you can have a little bit more control. And look at the beauty now, the real beauty of these three sheens coming together. So in the center, that's going to dry super glossy right there. That pink is going to dry very, very matte. And then we get that iridescent right here on the outer edge right there. Now we could draw all those things together. Let's take a palette knife. And I'm going to do this. I'm just going to take this straight through. If we want to bring those together, we get some really kind of interesting, almost like, I don't know, I think it's almost like a peacock feather, what you start to get there. And you can draw your palette knife through. But once this is dry, again, I can peel that whole thing up. And what that really does is it gets you to think about composition. So once it's dry, I could then place that wherever I want on another surface, and we could glue it down. And then you're getting all this really interesting kind of combinations of matte, of glossy, of iridescent. And I really love the way that muted turquoise looks with that blue. I feel like I'd love a car that color. It's really it looks like some sort of classic. I feel like there's got to be a 1960s classic car out there that has that sort of color variation. I'm going to show you another one here that I have that's already dry. That's kind of fun to be able to play with. And let's see, where is that? Oh yeah, here we go.
Hey, Jimmy, do you want to talk about adding water to the pouring mediums? That was a question.
Yeah, you know, it's not recommended. There's no, the pouring mediums are made for a consistency that's meant to be poured as is. So there's really no reason to do that. I mean, chemically speaking, could you? You could. You could thin it out more, but then it's going to become much more loose, and it's going to start to move maybe in ways that don't work so well. Certainly with the iridescent and the matte, you're going to make those more transparent when they don't dry that transparent to begin with. So that's something that I probably, I'd probably avoid and wouldn't do. Over here is what I want to show you. Let me set this off to the side, and again, make sure that anything that you're moving, you've got a place to put it. Highly suggest where there's no pets. That's a big one. No kids, no things like that. But let's look at one that's dry here. I'm going to peel this up. And that's coming up really easily. Okay, so look at this one. This one's dry here. And look at how beautiful that is. Now these concentric circles. So you can see that matte on the outer edge. We get the iridescent. And then we get that middle part right here. That is our regular pouring medium. So this is a combination of really using them all together. And notice what's happened. Remember, because I said the regular pouring medium is not as thick as the other two varieties, the iridescent and the matte. It sort of sinks into the film, and it's created this shadow-like halo. And if I flip it over, you can actually see it over on the backside a little bit as well. And this one, we have a similar kind of thing happening. That one was already peeled up. Right, really beautiful things that happen when you get this matte area in the middle of this very, very iridescent area. So let's do another pour here, and let's set our original one off to the side a little bit, and we'll use this. And I'm going to use a little bit of matte again. So one of the things that I've done here, we're going to do sort of a semicircular pour. I'm going to use a little bit of matte first. And then I think I'll follow up. I'm going to go with some iridescent. I'm going to go with a really funky color combination. This is vivid lime green right here. And I didn't mix it 100% in with the iridescent medium. So it's going to have sort of a kind of swirled effect. And I'm just going to put that right next to it. Not mixing the two together right now. I might, but I'm just going to kind of bring that, and I get this really interesting edge that starts to form right there. And we'll go from that to our regular pouring medium in muted pink. So it's going to be a deeper pink than here. There's our regular pouring medium.
Hey, Jimmy. It's
Yeah,
Jeannie. And Marla,
yeah,
you've been answering some really interesting questions. And it's
yeah.
everyone's obviously really intrigued with the different mediums. And what do they do to the integrity of the color? Do you have any of these colors next to it that you could compare and do a
Yeah,
drawdown so they could just show the difference?
yeah,
So
sure,
you can
sure.
see
Let's,
the
yeah, let's do
luster
that.
that you're getting?
Yeah, let's do that right up top here. So here's muted green, straight, muted green, right from our little jar. And this is, actually, I'm not going to use, that's going to be a little too fluid. Let me use, let me choose a little bit of the, I'll do the medium magenta. So I'll do the medium magenta right here. So I'm going to put that down, and we'll just take our palette knife and just sort of spread that out. Now, let's look at the container right before you do the pouring medium next to it. Once again, very, very, very opaque, right? It's an opaque color. We know that because that fully filled in dark square there tells us it's opaque. And the matte pouring medium, because it has a matting agent, is more opaque. So when this is mixed with the color, I don't think we really get any discernible difference between those two, right? Because it's an opaque color and it's mixed with an opaque matte pouring medium. Okay, then let's look at the difference here. If we go now, we'll take our muted green. We'll do that now. And actually, I could do this. I could drop the ink right into that pour that I put there. Look at that interesting, watch this. I want to show you this before we do a little comparison with the pouring medium, but watch when I drop this in. Look at that. Let's get that close. See how that's starting to sink below the surface right there? That iridescent medium is kind of creeping. You can see it right there too. It's kind of creeping around that. So you'll start to get this mixture because that lighter ink is just sinking into the surface right there to create some really interesting effects. But let's put a little more of that ink. We'll go right here. So the muted green ink is super, super dark green, super dark green. And if we have that mixed with a little bit of regular pouring medium, you can see that that's changed it significantly. Now, if I add more color into the pouring medium, right, I can bring some of that darkness back. So it just depends on how much color you add to the pouring medium. So that's something you want to kind of consider, but it's going to change it more with the regular pouring medium because that is it makes it much more transparent than the matte is going to make it. Same thing with iridescent. With our iridescent medium, when we look at iridescent, and again, we'll take some muted turquoise this time. I think we'll put that here. Muted turquoise on its own, really deep, right? But blue this time instead of the green. You almost can't tell in its mass tone like that. Let's see if I bring it up there, you can kind of tell it's more blue. I'm going to do this. That's how rich that color is. Look at how much I have to spread it out. And then you get that really deep, deep, beautiful. We got a question coming in here from the Espinoza family. Hey, Espinoza family. I don't know if it's just one of you or that's the account. But they say, never heard of the word medium. Yeah, that's something we talked about in the beginning. I'm going to use a little bit of our, let's put some of our iridescent medium mixed with that muted turquoise. So look how that pearlescent color has changed. That's changed that dramatically. Big change with that. So you're going to see more of a change with regular pouring medium, more of a change with iridescent, less with matte. So yeah, again, just recap. The word medium, when we're using the word medium, a medium is anything that you add to the paint that's going to change its characteristics. So a paint right out of, and we see it here, a paint like this, the Liquitex ink right out of the container is this deep, dark, dense blue that could almost be confused for black right there if I didn't tell you any different. When it's mixed with our iridescent medium, the iridescent medium has changed it, right? It's made it lighter, it's made it glossier, and it's made it iridescent. So it's changed its sheen, it's changed its viscosity, it's made it thicker. You see it's not as runny as right here as well. So mediums are those things that you use to customize stuff. So let's go back to this here. So imagine I'm going to take this off again. We've got different varieties of pouring medium. Regular pouring medium. We're going to go with a little bit of iridescent. And I'm just going to make like a semicircle. We got off track there. Make a little semicircle here like that. I'm going to use a little bit of matte. All right. I'm going to take a little bit of, let's use a little bit more of matte over here, maybe next to the iridescent. So I get two different sheens next to one another. And then let's use a little bit more iridescent with a different color this time. So I can make these sort of beautiful combinations, you know, circular form I'm doing right there. Let's put that aside like a cooking show. Let's imagine that's dry. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. Put that away. I want that again on a flat surface. I want it on a flat surface so it doesn't go sliding all over the place. And then what I'll do is we'll come over here and we're gonna take a dried version right here. Okay, so I'm going to take this dry version and I'm going to peel it up off of our non-stick surface. So I just got to get the edge started. Let's see, let's go over here. There we go. You can see, I'm going to be real quiet. Ready? Listen. Marla knows I don't remain quiet for long. That was a long.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I looked up. I'm like, what?
But that was a long time for Jimmy to be quiet. Okay, so look, I have this, right? So now, once again, keep in mind, making an acrylic skin is just one possibility. But what that allows you to do is decide where you want to place this skin instead of pouring directly onto a surface. So let's look. I'm going to pull into the scene here. I've got two canvases. So I've got a canvas that I just have. I use Liquitex acrylic gouache, and it's very, very matte. You can see there's no sheen to that surface. I can move that in light, no sheen to that. And I could take this and then I can put it here and decide, where do I want that in space? Right? Or do I want it on that one? Do I like that on the red? I don't know if I like that on the red. Marla, what do you think? Nah.
It takes away the purple a little bit.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work with the purple. So let's do this. I have a different variety down here.
Better.
Better.
Yeah.
I don't know if I love that, but better. Let's try. Those are both canvas. Let's switch it up again. Let's try. This is all stained with ink. Yeah, I think kind of cooler there because it kind of fits, those colors kind of work together a little bit better. But what you could do is you could have different surfaces with different colors on them. You could make different pours and then you can start to play around. Or maybe this is one that I don't know, maybe you don't want to use this one at all. Let's try a different one. I'm going to grab one off to the side here.
Hey, Jimmy, when
Yeah.
you're probably going to get to this, but I've gotten this question a couple of times. When you are ready to attach that, are you going to use pouring medium or what are you going to use?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Let's do that in just a minute. So hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought. It's a smart question. Let's try. That's overly purple too. But let's peel that one up. Let's try it. And you can kind of hear that. Really comes up easily. So that's the fun of acrylic pours. Now, hey, the other thing you could do, you could cut this, right? You could cut it. You could put this down. Let's set that off to the side. You could put this down on this surface right now. And you could actually layer another acrylic pour on top of that. And you could start to get different variations and different layers of color in there. So it allows you to sort of play around a little bit, layer things and decide how you might like that form. But let's do that. Let's apply it to the surface and we'll show you how to do that. So when we're ready to do that, I think I'm going to use this one though. I think this is the one I'm going to try. I want a little, this has got some purple in it, but I want a little less purple. So I have tons of these. I have these all over the place here. And you can see, I knew I was working with some square surfaces. So I kind of outlined a little square surface there on my palette paper. Don't need to do that. I don't need to. Yeah, let's do that. I kind of like that. I think that's pretty cool. I like that green against the yellows and oranges, and we can add to that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my pour. You can actually see some, it's kind of interesting from behind too, actually. All right, kind of neat back there. I'm going to lay that down just like this. And this surface here is very matte. So what I'm going to use is matte medium. right here. Now this begs the question, doesn't it? I think I'm going to maybe head off a question here. We have matte medium. We have regular pouring medium, right? We also have iridescent medium and regular pouring medium. So this begs the question, why not just add iridescent medium to my pouring medium to make iridescent pouring medium? Why have a new iridescent pouring medium? Well, the reason is sort of twofold. The pouring medium, regular pouring medium, matte pouring medium, and iridescent pouring medium are all formulated to be the right viscosity for pouring. And remember, to be a formula that reduces crazing, reduces these little rivulets that can happen in poured pools of paint, or oh boy, poured pools of paint. That's like the tongue twister right there. Poured puddles of paint. It reduces those little rivulets that can happen in big pours like that. So pouring medium has the right viscosity for the act of paint pouring. The other part is you would have to add a tremendous amount of iridescent medium to get the iridescence that we're seeing in these beautiful, beautiful sheens like this right here. So it would actually cost you a lot of money to have to do that. And the same thing would be said of matte pouring medium. You'd have to add a whole lot of matte pouring medium. You'd have to get it all mixed in correctly and thoroughly too for it to all be matte. So if you're in the pouring game, the idea of the matte and the iridescent is this, it's ready to go for you. Okay, so we've got our acrylic skin. That's what we call these, if I didn't mention. These pores that we can peel up from a non-stick surface is what we like to call in the paint pouring biz an acrylic skin. So I'm going to flip that upside down. I'm going to take a little bit of, where is it? My matte medium. Where did I just put? Here we go. I'm going to take my matte medium, and I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shift this up a little bit for you guys. Okay, I'm going to put some of my matte medium right down here. Now, matte medium looks very white right there. Let me move this up a little bit more for you guys in the picture. There we go. It looks very white because it needs to evaporate. The water needs to evaporate out of that film, and then it won't dry totally clear because it's matte. It's a matte medium. But what the matte medium will do will make any paint that you mix with it a matte sheen. But what it'll also do in this case is acrylic mediums act as excellent adhesives. So I'm just going to brush a light layer on this, just a light layer. Now, acrylics in general, if you, I don't know how many of you can give us a shout and let us know how many of you are experienced at working in acrylics a little bit, or have you worked in acrylics but also oil? Because one of the things you might notice is if you get oil paint on your clothing, you're like, well, that's no good if you didn't, if it's not, if it's not studio clothes, you don't want your paint on your clothing. But with oil paint, if you dabbed it and then you used a little bit of mineral spirits or solvent, you could kind of get it to come out of your clothing pretty easily because it dries so slowly. With acrylics, if you get that on any sort of fabric and you don't get to clean that up right away, acrylics dry so quickly that they really want to stick. They are just a natural adhesive. So you don't need a separate glue. I'm putting this on the back of our acrylic skin, and this acrylic medium is going to be my glue. So you don't have to worry about buying a separate glue, buying a glue that's, that you have to worry about being archival or discoloring over time, or possibly cracking and not holding its adhesive power. And again, you could mix this with any of your other Liquitex acrylic paints if you want more of a matte sheen. So it's double duty, right? It's going to change the sheen of your paint. And in this case, we're using it as glue. So I've got that on there. Again, not a very thick layer. I'm going to clean off my brush. I want to do that. Otherwise, that brush is going to be useless because that will dry on there. And what we'll do, we'll set this here. And I'm going to gently flip that and put it right there. Now, until I press it into place, I can move it around, right? I can shift it around. So I think it doesn't matter if it's sticking off the edge because I can flip it over and I can cut that excess off, but we can fit it all in here. So we're going to go just like that, I think. And then I'm going to gently press it into place. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use either a clean rag. I've got a clean paper towel here. I'm going to do that instead of using my fingers. And I'm just going to gently press down on the surface. just gently. I don't have to do anything real hard. And that's going to dry pretty quickly, but even right now, that's not coming off. Look, that's not coming off my surface. I can bang on that, and that's just not coming off my surface. And I have a combination here of, you can see as I shift this in the light, we've got some matte pouring medium right there. In the middle, we've got some regular pouring medium acting super glossy like it loves to do. In these more purple violet areas, I've got my iridescent. So I've used all varieties together to have a different amounts of sheen in this. But now that we did this, it's not, it could be our stopping point, right? I did that with this one right here. You can see I started with the blue background and I used my acrylic skin there, which was, again, we can see the sheens here, right? Regular pouring medium right here, super shiny, matte next to it, iridescent right here. And you might use all one variety together. Maybe you don't use all three together. I'm showcasing them that way because, I simply want to show them since they're all new together. But I've got that glued down. And then once I have this, yeah, go ahead, Marla.
Hey, I have a question. Actually, it came up when we were working on a project. Someone has an interesting question about the iridescent medium in terms of how it reacts why would you use it if you were using metallics, and could you not get the same effect with just using a metallic paint? And I'm just going to interject because we did this already. The iridescent medium provided more luster, and that was the one thing that we came across. But is there, what could you add to that in terms of metallic versus...
Sure. Yeah, Jeannie, it's a good question. It's like all these ones, these are kind of interesting things that I'm not even thinking of. But the one obvious thing, and Marla, certainly feel free to chime in, but the thing that stands out to me, and sorry, I've got the acrylic skin glued down, so I'm going to add other pouring on top of it, which I could add in other areas, or I could even cross over other areas and get different dimensions. But Marla, for me, the one thing that sticks out is there simply aren't that many metallic colors in a range.
Right.
In the Liquitex range, you've got iridescent gold. Actually, I can show you right here. I actually have some of that in ink. Beautiful iridescent gold, gorgeous, really beautiful color. We've got that in a silver, a copper, a bronze, but you don't have it in all these other colors that are in the range. So yeah, you just don't, you're only kind of stuck with those, the things we think of as metal. Gold, silver, bronze, copper, as opposed to something like this, where using the iridescent medium now gives that sort of metallic type look to our vivid lime green that I have right here. And let's add a little bit more to this. So I'm gonna kind of fill in some of these spaces here, and you can kind of think about where they go, where you want to put those. Let's kind of fill in here. Does that make sense, Jeannie? Did that answer that?
Yeah, I think so. It just expands your palette. But if you had compared like a metallic versus adding the iridescent to it, it still added more luster, which you could definitely see than even to the metallic. So it's just a wonderful medium that we're working with here.
And I like, so that's interesting, right? I have my very matte ground that we started with. I've got my acrylic skin on there, and now I've added to this, and then I can go a little bit further. So again, I can say, what can I do with this? How about if I take my matte, and for anybody who, if anybody joined us a little later, keep in mind our packaging, this is what our packaging looks like. That's our new packaging. You guys are all getting such a sneak peek that I actually only have big buckets of matte and iridescent pouring medium right now in my studio from the lab. So I don't even have the new packaging. You guys are amongst the first people to get to see this. So it's kind of fun. But I'm going to take, I took the iridescent. I'm going to drop some matte in there. So I just love, I like that idea, because to me, and Marla, I'm sure we've talked a lot about art over the years, but, for me, art is all about how can I experiment and push ideas? So it's like, if you tell me, oh, well, here's this sheen, and here's this sheen, and here's this one, then it's like, okay, well, what happens if I put matte on regular, matte on iridescent, iridescent on regular, and it's like, you can, I'm not a good enough mathematician to find to tell you how many possibilities that is. but it gets to be quite a lot. And I think that's a really fun way to experiment.
Yeah. And Jimmy, when you're doing that, I was thinking, you know, someone might think, what's the point of doing the skin and then paint and then doing what you're doing now? But as you're watching what you're doing, you're getting a layering that you couldn't get if you were doing wet on wet. Like it would
Correct.
dimension. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Wet on wet is going to sink into one another, which is happening right here. And I think what that does is give you a really subtle sort of thing, which you know, you see in pores. And then here we get something more dramatic when I'm actually placing a pore on one another. And I think, you know, the approach that I'm taking right here, I'm also thinking about, once again, well, where would this blue look best? I think the blue looks nice on its sort of cousin. I say cousin here, this violet, you know, because they would be sort of closer on a color wheel together, this blue moving into the violet range. And I like that I can bring those two things together. And maybe, you know, what's interesting too, in your pores. So let's be careful with this. I'm going to set this off to the side. And let me do this. Let's see, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I can show you this. So many different examples. Oh, it's all over my studio here, which is fun. So I've got this one, right? So this pore right here, you know, if I put this down on another surface, it's got these spaces in here, all these negative, you know, what we refer to as negative spaces, all these holes. I could fill those in with other varieties of pouring. Or let me reach over, pardon me while I reach here across my studio, and I could come in here and say, you know what? I don't love that shape. I don't like that green that's in there. I could do this with an X-Acto knife too, you know, if I want to get a little bit more specific, but I just want to cut out that. Yeah, I'm going to cut out that green, you know, so now I've opened up that space. So I can start to think about it. Really, it's almost like, you know, I think when you do collage and maybe you take pieces of magazine paper and you collage, right? You pull all these pieces of color up and then you can cut and you arrange. So making an acrylic skin is the equivalent of being able to arrange your pour rather than your pour directly on you know, a surface other than a non-stick surface. Because again, just want to reiterate that for anybody tuning in late. Pouring on a non-stick surface means we can peel it up, because acrylics don't love sticking to a non-stick surface. Like most things, right? Like your cookie on your, well, here, and also on your, I haven't been using it here, cookie tray here for pouring. That way, if you do have things go over the edge, you can kind of contain it. I'm being a little bit more controlled with these bottles, so it's not that big of a deal. But I can cut these in all different sorts of shapes. And this is one I did. Yeah, go ahead.
You're saying that you actually did the pouring on the cooking tray? I haven't done that before. You mean on like a non-stick cooking tray?
Well, so that's a two-part answer there, Marla. Actually, I did two things. I used this pouring tray. I put down non-stick paper on it, and I poured on that. And I just used it because the edges were there to kind of contain anything that spilled over. However, some did spill over on it, and I was able to peel it up off of that.
Oh,
cool. So I would venture to say to anyone two things. Probably depends on the quality of the non-stick tray. This was nothing expensive, but it worked. But also, if you're doing that, don't use it for your baking afterward. Right? Keep your art supplies and stuff separate from, you know, I mean, probably you'd be able to peel it up and clean it. It would be good, but I just don't want to encourage anyone to mix the two. But let me go back to this one I was about to show you. So here, just like we did with this one, and look at all that beautiful, that pearlescent, that iridescent, just, man, it's so gorgeous. And I like that again, just where I could see that in the light. There's where we get this matte, right, against the regular shine. You can really see that tilting plays that up really well. And here again is using the watercolor paper, ink splatters, using my skin, and then adding, I use that same color, the iridescent, mixed with a vivid lime green to get that. So really pretty. And then it brings up the other kind of concept. You're starting to play with things. Well, does it look better this way? Does it look better this way? you know, all sorts of ways that you can kind of think about things and that you can push them. And do you want to take this as a bigger, you know, a bigger concept, a smaller concept? You know, you can kind of go any which way. So I really think, I'll show you a few more examples here. I did one, let me move this one. Because when I was doing these, I wish you could see, I should have taken a picture to share with you of what my studio looked like when I was prepping for this. I had, my gosh, I had this all over the place. I mean, everywhere in my studio. Here I did one that's more like a lattice work or lace work. So you get really just one color with iridescent and let all those areas show through. So, you know, I'm not going to like this combination here of, you know, I don't love that. It's a little harsh on the eyes. You know, but if I poured that in a different way, or I could, you know, I could cut that up and do that. But you get all these other areas that start to show through. So that matte surface against the iridescent, again, shaking up sheen, you know. And then we say here, I see a question that just popped up. Has this been asked? Can I use the mediums with a regular acrylic paint? I'm not sure what regular acrylic paint means, but all these things that I'm showing you, this is Liquitex acrylic ink, Liquitex acrylic gouache, Liquitex soft body as well. It can be used with any of these. All of this is compatible. And we also make, one thing I should mention this, some of you may have, and Marla showed this in her previous demos, she showed Liquitex heavy body, which comes in a tube, and heavy body is a thick consistency of paint from Liquitex. You could mix this in with pouring medium. It would just be harder to do. So I use these today because their viscosity is thinner. Yeah, so that's good. Now, one other thing, Marla, I'm not sure if this was mentioned in the chat, but you added a link to the project sheet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. I can do it again just to.
Yeah, let's pop that up right now so everybody can see it. So, and I'll explain that as soon as that comes up. Marla's going to put a project sheet in there. Yep, there it is. So you guys can click on that, and it uses different colors in the project sheet than what I used right here. But it shows you how to make an acrylic skin and how to attach that to a surface. And really, it's beautiful, beautiful photos that walk you through step by step going through this process. So I would certainly invite you to watch this again on the Michaels website for sure. But also that project sheet is just really, really nice. It's by a wonderful artist, Kristen Brown, who's a colleague of Marla and I, and she did a lovely job with that. So I think you guys are really going to like that. And I'm going to show you just a few more in the last few minutes, a few more examples of some pours that I have, some skins that I have. I like, now this is interesting. This happened. I didn't know it happened. So this is kind of good to show you. This is actually really good to show you. It's not what I wanted, but you know, these mistakes happen or nice teaching moments. So look here, I've got my nonstick paper, right? Just that we've been using. I've got a pour on there of acrylic skins. I have this other acrylic skin that ended up, that was already peeled up, and somehow I must have set it on there at some point. These two acrylic layers, they're not coming apart. They just, look at that. Like I can peel this whole thing up off the nonstick, but this other acrylic skin, acrylic layers want to stick together. Look at that. That's, let me get that in camera. Those aren't coming apart. They are not coming apart. So if you have multiple acrylic skins, do not layer them one another. Otherwise you're going to have that. Now, that doesn't mean all that's lost there. I've actually got those layered without even using any matte medium. Those two have attached to one another. Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Jeannie again.
Yeah.
You're doing really great. We're going to be wrapping up soon. Marla, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
I've put in the chat several links, as Marla did, to the Liquitex website, which will give you more details on not only the pouring medium, but the matte medium and the iridescent medium. We had so many great questions, and I encourage you to go to that website, liquitex.com. The links are in the chat. I also want to encourage all of you to participate in our survey. It really helps us curate more classes that would be of interest to you. Give us some comments and obviously rate Jimmy. Thanks for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, the Liquitex website, liquitex.com, will have all this information. Jimmy's showing you the websites or the Instagram where you can follow us.
Yeah.
And lastly, everything that you're seeing and the prior classes, this is the 4th of our series of Liquitex color and mediums, will be available on michaels.com/classes. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jimmy and Marla, Jimmy for presenting and Marla for moderating. And Jimmy, why don't you wrap it up?
Yeah. So for the wrap up, guys, a few things. Jeannie just mentioned all those links. If you have any questions after the fact, the 2 places that you can get me, I manage the Fine Art Collective, right? TFACNA Instagram account. So if you have a question about anything, you can reach out to me there. Just direct message me there. Say, hey, Jimmy, I was in the class, got a question. You can also do it through my personal at Jimmy Leslie Art. I don't mind that. Some people, think it's infringing upon anything. I don't mind. That's totally fine. Don't do it here though. I don't manage that one, so I just won't see it. So, but if you have a question, and guys, anything acrylic, let me flip it back to the main camera here for a second here as we wrap up. If I can find my computer mouse, it's under everything. Here we go. It's under everything. There we go. Let's see. Yeah. So a few things, guys. There we go. You can reach out to me at those places. But if you have any questions about Liquitex products at all, so I don't want you to think that, oh, I was in the pouring medium class, you can't ask me about something else. Of course you can. Of course you can. Reach out. I'm super happy to do that. I'm a former college art professor, so boy, I love questions. I love answering them. Love helping you guys out. Last few things I just want to share with you. Play and experiment, right? One of the things that I think, and Marla, I think you would agree with this, is, instead of just going to a project and thinking, I'm going to work on this project and I'm just, I'm going to do this and I'm going to have a great outcome. I think it's sometimes better to just permit yourself to have a play period where the outcome is not about the finished artwork. It's about the process and getting to know the materials and getting to know different ways that you can combine them. And then you don't put the pressure on yourself like, this didn't come out good. I did a bad piece of art. Right, Marla?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's just have fun with it. And a very last thing, when you make a piece of artwork and it doesn't work out, I say this in every demo, do not beat yourself up about it, people. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to, enough people in the world who might not be kind to you. Please be kind to yourself. You will have much more fun during the creative process if you just take a deep breath. And if you get frustrated with what you're doing, that's a sign that it's time to step back, walk away, get yourself a cup of coffee, tea, come back with clear eyes. And I promise you, things will not look as bad as you think they were if you do have something that messes up. So with that, guys, I will tell you, I wish you safety, stay safe through all this that's going on, stay creative. Ask us questions in the meantime, and we will see you at our next class. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thanks so much.